lunch and learn with one of our clients, Hossein. I'm not going to try your last name because you already made fun of me. So I'll have him introduce his last name. But Hossein has been a client here for a little over a year.
2.5.
2.5. Wow. I'm not counting COVID. So, anyways, he's a specialist in cyber attacks, controlling, securing your iCloud storage, particularly was with the accounting space. And what you have today goes across to any space. Anyone who's dealing with the cloud, anyone who's pushing data up and down and sharing. So with that, I'm going to take it away.
Thank you, John.
And I'll eat your sandwich.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope we have a very good conversation and go over some stuff that I would like to share with you. So my name is Hossein, and my company is called Advantage IT. We are specialized in working to small to mid-sized businesses and helping them protect their data better. Today, the conversation is pretty broad, and it goes across all sorts of businesses, no matter what space you're in. Whether you're in accounting space, whether you're financial space, or manufacturing space, you're in social media space, basically we are going to have a conversation that applies to, more than one type of business. So I'd like to start the conversation today with what happened to us. Okay, can I have the first slide, please? Thank you. We have become numb to the news of attacks and data breaches. We just became numb. I mean, you guys remember the Capital One data breach? I'm sure you've heard about it. Marriott, Facebook, there are like lots of those companies who get hit every day. But we hear it so much, right? You remember the big one? I think this was about more than a year ago, a year and a half ago, Equifax, almost 2 years ago, right? And Equifax is the one that holds all of our credit history, right? Like we hear it so much every day, and it's hot for a few days. Everyone talks about it in news. There's probably a special segment in news about it, on TV, and then we forget because they happen so often and so frequent, right? But they are very real. I'm going to assure you that. So when it comes to a data breach, right? Why is it important, and what do we need to keep in mind? Let's do the next slide, right? So I'm going to start with the fact that today, the most important asset for companies is their data. That is the gold. That is the most important asset that any company has, right? And therefore, the attacks are, geared toward that, right? I don't know if you guys have been in the drug dealing business or not, but despite of how, lucrative it sounds, it's actually a very difficult business to be in. You've got to source the drug. You got to smuggle drug across the border. You got to distribute the drug to big ones and the small ones and then the tiny distributor, right? Trust me, it's a lot of work. I haven't done it. I just heard it's a lot of work. So, but when it comes to data, here is what it takes. This is a very typical scenario, a very typical example. So basically, think about a guy who wakes up at 11 a.m. in his hoodies, the typical hacker stereotype, which that's not true, by the way, sits on the couch and starts to send a million phishing emails, pretending to be someone else, right, and asking for money. Or sending fake bills around. That's a very common one, just sending bills around, right? 1 million people would get it, right? And it's super easy because you can automate those things, you can just let it go, right? What are the odds that one of these 1 million people would actually pay the money? They fall for it, right? It's very common. It's actually, the odds are actually more than that 1 out of 1 million, right? They always have, roughly about a 1% is the success rate. But think about it, right? It didn't take him much, right? He was sitting on his couch, and he just basically send the bill out or send the request out, try and pretend someone asking for a couple $1,000, right? Eventually, someone will fall for that of 1 million, and probably by the end of the day, I'm gonna guess he probably has 10 to 20 grand in his bank account or checks, expecting to arrive at his mailbox, right? Compare that to the drug dealing scenario. That was a lot of work. This was easy. You started 11 a.m. by 5 p.m. You got some money in your bank account, right? So this is really the problem. It becomes simple. This is the new drug dealing business. This is the new problem, right? It's super easy. It's super simple. It's not so complicated. But also, let's talk about the statistics, right? So the average cost of a data breach is almost $4 million, and this is according to last year's stats, right? And I will tell you where this $4 million come from. But think about this. $4 million. How many companies do you know that they have $4 million in their bank account ready to spend? A lot of small to mid-sized businesses don't. It takes more than 6 months on average for a company of a small, medium size, right, to recover from a data breach, right? And again, but recovering is a broad subject, right? It's not just like, hey, we got our data back, right? And there is more. There's like damages, that's done to the company, which we're going to talk about it in a second, right? And also, yes, sir.
So when you say data breach, are we talking usually about like customer data, or are we talking about? I mean, like in our case, we're a software company. We got some source code. We have no customer data.
Anything that would damage your business, and that's data. So it could be your source code, it could be your IP, it could be client data, it could be any sort of data that's gold for you, any sort of data that if I take it away from you, you're like, we can't operate without this, or this is gonna slow us down quite a bit. Or this is gonna put out of business because some competition took it and running with it.
So it's not, so I guess it's more than just somebody copied our data, it's they might block our access to our own data. Like
that is part of the damage, yes.
Okay.
But also in a lot of cases, nowadays it's become more stealth. Like, a lot of times, when someone breaks into your network, breaks into your systems, break into your, source code repository, right? They get a copy and they don't even let you know, and they can go run with it, right? They can go some other company, sell it to a competition, they start running with it, right? You won't even notice. And this is really the problem, right? And I always use this example, right? Let's say you're sitting in your office or your home office, right? Let's pick an office for this example. You're sitting in an office and you just want to go use the restroom and come back. You leave your computer on, okay? And you have some important information on this computer. I don't know, some financial information, client information, source code, anything that's important to you and your business, right? How long does it take for someone to come and plug in a flash drive, get a copy, and leave? The problem is not just somebody took your data, but there's almost no way for you to find out if you don't have proper controls in place, right? So now I got a flash drive, restroom, in and out, boom, 2 files out, right? So this is also so I'm glad you asked that question, but by data, we mean any sort of data that is sensitive to your business, okay? Again, this could be financial data, this could be intellectual property that you have, this could be source code, this could be, anything that could basically cause problem for your business if they get stolen. So this cost is $4 million. Part of it comes from downtime, right? And that's pretty typical, right? Someone breaks into your network, right? And I don't know, think about a ransomware, right? If a ransomware, which I'm sure you guys heard about it by now, quite a bit and used to, right? Ransomware is something that basically gets into your computers and your networks and your files and all that and encrypts your data, right? And you can't use those files unless you can get a clean copy before the encryption. A lot of companies, believe it or not, don't really have a good backup disaster recovery in place. So if things get encrypted, they end up paying the ransom guy, paying the ransom money to the, bad guys. And basically that's the only way they can keep going, right? Speaking of which, I'm sure you heard the pipeline story.
Yeah.
And they had to pay. I heard that FBI somehow took it back, but they paid the ransom because there was no other way for them to bring it back up and running that quick, right? And you hear that with schools these days, you hear that with like everywhere. It's so common nowadays to pay the ransom, unfortunately, But part is basically, right, the downtime. You can't access your data, right? You're down, you're gonna lose money. If let's say you're a manufacturing company, you can't produce because your computer systems are out, right? You're gonna lose money. Simple as that, right? Again, the loss of data, right? Not often you can get your data back. Maybe, the ransom guys just take the money and run away. What's the guarantee they're gonna give your data back, right? Or you don't have a proper, like I said, backup or disaster recovery in place, right? You can't get your data, you lost the data. Now you have to start over. And in this case, let's think about, again, an accounting firm, right? They have worked for a month, right, on the stuff, and it turns out that, the most recent reliable backup that they have is from 2 months ago. What happens if they get a ransom today? If they can't get their data back, they're probably 2 months out, right? They lost their data. That means 2 months of, human resources and all that to get this stuff in, and also unhappy clients, right? Some other times, it's direct dollar value. It's a ransom money that you have to pay. That also is a part of the cost, right? Recovery. How long does it take for you? Let's say you got the data back. How long does it take for you to go back up and running, right? Liability, this is my favorite one, okay? So especially in those companies or organizations that they deal with sensitive client data. Think about, again, accounting firm, think about a law firm, think about human resource firm, right? I'm sure you guys as small businesses, you all deal with some of those guys to some level, right? You probably already have an accountant, so you can kind of relate, you probably already have, a lawyer that you might go to, right? Again, those guys have lots of sensitive information. So let's say someone steals those information and give it back to them, right? I stole it today, I give it back. Now that person or that firm is liable to their clients because the clients trusted them with their data and they couldn't take care of it, right? A common example, let's say accounting firms, even accounting firms get breached, right? They are obligated by federal and IRS requirements, depends on if they're a taxpayer or not, but by federal requirements, they are obligated to notify their clients and provide them some measures of, credit monitoring or, other measures to tell them, hey, we're sorry, we got compromised, but here's some credit monitoring for you, which that takes me to the next point, right? I mean, yes, they have to pay for all this credit monitoring. So think about a big accounting firm that has, I don't know, like 5,000 clients, right? How much now? Now it's all exponential now. 5,000 times, I don't know, $200 per employee or per client, right? I mean, the cost just skyrockets. Again, but that is the next one, reputation, right? If your company having some sensitive information, especially from your clients, right? And you got compromised, you got breached, I don't trust you anymore. You were not good with my data. How's that different from me giving you the keys to my car and you want to have an accident with it? How's it different? You think I'm going to give you my car another time? No. If you have an accident with my car, I'm not going to give you my car ever again, right? So again, same reason, reputation now, right? You don't want to die. And that's probably one of the biggest things, right? You work all these years and now you've been compromised, right? That's bad. That can put you easily out of business. That can actually be something that your competition can pick up on you, right? Oh, you're working with John Doe? Huh, did you hear they got compromised? Yeah, we heard that. Well, we haven't been compromised so far. We're better than them. So give us the business. And then compliance, right? Compliance applies to, for example, again, financial institution, medical institution, doctor's office, medical firms, medical spa, whatever has like, they're under, let's say HIPAA, PCI, if you're taking credit cards, right? I'm sure you heard about these compliance terms, right?
Because the dollar has an end, right? You recover the dollar. The bad reputation is like feathers to the wind. And
honestly, the biggest cost is probably for liability and reputation together. Right. You work so hard to build your business. Now, over one night, you're done. So again, compliance. I'm sure you heard about those medical practices who, have been in violation of the HIPAA, right? Because they have been compromised. Well, they have been compromised, and it turns out because they come investigate, now you've been in violation of HIPAA because you have XYZ in place, right? So who wants to work with a doctor's office who's not HIPAA compliant, right? Patient privacy. Okay. So I hope that kind of like shed some light on why this is a $4 million problem, right? And again, how many companies do you know that they have $4 million cash in their bank account to pay for these kind of things if they survive? Fine. So let's now talk about, okay, so let's pretend we're all small business owners, or you are, right? Or business owners, right? How do we deal with this situation? What is the best thing to do, right? Obviously, the idea is about the risk. What is my risk? You want to know what is your risk. Maybe you don't have a high risk. Maybe you are high risk, right? But you kind of want to find out, right? So there are 3 questions you should always ask yourself. Number 1, and back to Mike, right? What are you trying to protect, right? Everybody is different. Every company is different. Okay, for example, again, I'm using your example. In terms of Mike, it's his source code for his software because, he makes money off of his software, right? For an accounting firm, it's a client data, tax data, all these, tax filings and accounting, payroll, everything that they do for the clients. For a law firm, obviously, it's part of the case information they're referring to, right? There are a lot of these things, like let's talk about restaurants, right? For a restaurant, it's those credit cards that they get to the restaurant, right? Again, every company is different. So you got to ask yourself, in your own company, what is the most important thing in your company that you're trying to protect data-wise, right? What is that data that could either put you at liability or put you... And then the second question you should ask yourself is, okay, what am I doing today to protect this asset, this data? What is it today, right? For example, if you are a small business running an office, you can say, we got Firewall in our office. We got an antivirus on our computers. We got XYZ, right? What controls you have in place, right? And based on those controls, you kind of have to give yourself a score of how well you're protected, okay? And again, we'll go over that in a minute. I know it sounds like very, 1, 2, 3, but you have to adopt it based on your company and your situation, But again, at the end of the day, when you look at the risk, there are 2 things, right? Again, the probability of a bad situation happening to you, and then the impact of it, right? And then you can give yourself a risk score. In other words, if something is very unlikely to happen, and also if it happens, it's not the end of the world for us, right? For example, let's say your office, right? Let's say you lost the key to your office. You're thinking, okay, what are the chances I lose my key? Probably not much, And what really happens if I lose my key? I don't know. Someone can find and break in, right? Okay, what happens if someone breaks in? Probably not much. Our computers are encrypted. They got passwords on them. Nobody can get it, right? Again, you give yourself based on what is the chances and what's the impact, right? But if something has like a high chance and high impact, right? Obviously, you want to prioritize that item. You want to say, we're going to start with this risk here because this is so much likely to happen. If it happens, we're done, right? So you kind of want to start there, okay? So, wait 1 second. So let's play a game, okay? So picture when you guys bought your house, or if you don't own a house, right? Picture you're gonna go buy a house, okay? The day that you bought the house. Let's play a game again. I want everybody to participate if you guys like. What are you doing to protect that house? What are you doing to secure that house? I guess that's a better question, right? What are you doing to secure that house?
Lock, change the lock.
Lock, what else? Insurance, okay. What? Dog, there you go. No, it's a good one.
Okay.
Fence.
Trash the outside. So
Right, you know what it, seriously, that's not a bad idea. You know, and they got nothing there, right? What else? How about like an alarm system, motion detection, what do they do, right? How about, I don't know, some of us might have a weapon that we use to defend ourselves if something happens.
Well,
right?
also, it seems like when you have a house, you know what's in it.
Yes.
If something goes wrong, you kind of know. I mean, it's obvious.
You know, yeah, you know your.
That's my biggest concern from what you're saying is, all these people don't know. That stuff's been missing.
Well, that's the first question, right? But again, we're gonna assume that the house is important as a whole. You know what? Whether it's the house itself or the valuable inside the house or the people's life inside the house, right? We're trying to protect the entire house with everything in it, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And just like your business, right? At the end of the day, your business is important. We're trying to see what to do to secure your business. Okay.
Well, so to your point though, like, we had to secure our water heater because our insurance rate was higher Because I guess the likelihood of these others to have an earthquake and tip over is high, they tell me.
So you did something to bring down your risk.
Right.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I don't know if this plays into it at all, but, you know, like if you got some stuff in your car, before you get out of your car, you hide it so nobody can see that you got it, right? And it's security through obscurity. If people
Yeah.
know you got it, they're not gonna.
Yeah, exactly. Take it out of plain sight. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
That's how you think.
So let's do one next. Just one next. Okay. All right. One more.
One more?
Yes. Okay. That's good. So this is pretty much what you guys mentioned, right? More or less. Right? Doors, windows, lock, fence, insurance, dog gone. You got all that, right?
What's crime W?
Crime watch, like the
Neighborhood watch?
neighborhood watch, right? Okay, so everything you guys mentioned, I'm sure there's more, and this is just a handful, but there's more to do, obviously. Everything you guys mentioned is gonna fall in, let's do next slide, one of these three categories. One more, please. Yes. So, again, think about your house. You're either protecting your house, right? You're making it hard for someone to break in, or take it out of plain sight. You're protecting your car or house, right? Or you're detecting if someone broke into your house. Okay, that's an alarm, motion detection, monitoring, crime watch, right? And or you're responding. It happened. What now? You're sleeping in your bed. It's 1 a.m. You hear someone breaks into your house and trying to take things away, right? What do you do? It happened. We're doing. What are we gonna do? Yes, the dog is barking. We know, right? What's the next step? Well, take the gun, call the police, call 911, right? Or you haven't been home, they already took this stuff. What do we do? Call the insurance, So everything you do is either you're protecting your house, you're detecting if someone broke in, or you're responding to aftermath, right? So again, the question is, how is a house different from your business? Really? Why can't we apply the same principle to the business? In other words, anything you want to secure, why can't we apply the same principle? But I do have a question for you guys, okay? Again, protection, detection, response, right? Which one do you think is the most important? If you were gonna just pick one. Let's say you can only spend money on one column, right?
Protection.
Let's just vote. I don't even know the answer. So let's vote. How many people say protection? 1, 2, 3, 4. Detection. 1, 2, 3, and respond. Nobody wants to respond?
I mean, if you're gonna detect it, and you can't do anything about it, then that was useless.
Right.
Pointless, but.
So the correct answer is actually detection. And I tell you guys why. Put an example. So let's say you have your house, right? And let's say you got this very precious piece of jewelry in the house that's worth, I don't know, $1 million, right? It's sitting somewhere in your house, in a safe, in your dining table, I don't know, somewhere it's sitting in your house. And I'm a guy or a thief that knows that you have that $1 million piece of jewelry, right? Let me put it this way. If I really want it, I'll get it. That is the problem, right? And that's a targeted attacks on the companies, right? If it's a big company and someone is determined to get in, trust me, they'll get in, right? And there are all different ways of getting in, right? And by the way, when we think about like cyber attacks and all those things, right? Don't think about just like Russians and like nation states and all that, right? Trust me, the problem is way before all. Like that is a problem, but that's not the biggest problem that we have, right? This is a very old story, but this is not even cyber attack, but again, goes along the line. So I think Oracle and Microsoft are competing at some point back in time. I can't remember the whole story, but I'm sure if you guys Google it, you might find it, right? And Oracle hired people to go dig in the Microsoft recycled papers. They didn't have to break in. They were already trashing those, right? Let's go see what's in it, right? But point being is, right, there are many different ways. And I want to point out to one particular area, but.
So is your point here that even these companies that have a lot of things in place to protect, right, are just failing because it's just easy enough. The ease of entry into breaking into something, whether you're successful or not, there's not a lot of effort.
I wouldn't say it's always easy. I would again go back to the fact that if you're determined, you'll get it. How bad do you want it, right? It's not always easy, right? But if you really want something, you'll get something,
I mean, you'll break the window.
Think about going on a date in high school with your favorite person, right? You really wanted to, you put all your effort into it, right? You might have achieved it. Again, that is a problem, right? Not all the companies have proper protections in place, so it becomes easy, especially small businesses, right? Are a lot easier. Anything under 150 employee probably is a way easier target for the people to get it, right? But even big companies, like I said, think about the pipelines, right? That big happens, So it's just like how big or how bad they want. But let me go back to the whole why detection, right? The thing with the detection is, so we all agree, right? It can't happen to anybody, right? There's nobody can say we're immune to a data breach or someone breaking into us, right? The thing with the detection is, when you know something happened, you can stop it sooner. If you cut your hand, the first thing is stop the bleeding. That is a we all know that, right? We try to put some, thing on it to stop the bleeding, put a giant Band-Aid. I don't know. Like I cut my hand a couple years ago with a knife and I was trying to slice avocado. That was not a fun. I still have the stitches on my hand actually here. But and I hold the avocado like this and literally just went through. But I was stupid. The point is, there was nobody home, right? And I see literally slice my skin. But all I knew is hold it and rush to the emergency room, right? Right? And again, you want to know as soon as possible, right? Obviously, when it's coming to your body, because it's painful, it's hurting when right? But same thing with your company, your business. You want to detect, you want to know as soon as possible, right? In other words, as much as buying a fancy firewall and antivirus could sound lucrative, which it's important. You've got to have protection in place, right? But honestly, that question is beside. If you guys ever were approached by a consultant or something, you gotta buy this a specific firewall, right? Yes, it's good. You gotta have a firewall, but why should I buy this $10,000 firewall versus a $1,000 firewall versus a $500 firewall, right? The question is, when you think about security, you gotta think about layers. You gotta put different layers in place to make it hard. You wanna make it super hard. Back to your question, sir. You wanna make it really hard for the people to get in, so the average Joe goes away, right? And you only deal with the one who really determined, which is a whole different story. But you want to make the average hacker kind of just, right? So we're going to put layers in place, right? In other words, having a decent firewall is important, but it doesn't have to be the top of the line if you have proper controls in other places in place, right? Speaking of detection, and this is probably, the most important aspect when it comes to planning a cybersecurity plan, right? What is the weakest link when it comes to any security? Any security, forget about companies, right? For your life, anything around people, right? So people are the weakest link, right? So one of the most effective, theories in cybersecurity is that you turn your weakest link into your first line of defense. So think about a phishing email, right? Phishing email is an email that pretends something that's not true and they try to trick you, right? Trust me, there's also the email security layers you can put in place, but the good phishing emails always go through because it's a legitimate email. Yes, you can spend $10,000 on a solution, but none of those solutions are going to sign 100% no phishing email gets through, right? So phishing emails do get through, and the really good ones actually get through, right? Okay, who's going to figure out that, Mike never really asked me to send him $10,000? It's an employee who's or person or human that's like reading that email. You know, I was like, Mike doesn't even have $10,000 bank account. Sorry, I'm joking. But, you know, he would never ask me that. You know, it's the human, right? So you kind of have to like really, let's go next slide, please. You really think about all the aspects, right? So again, back to business settings, back to your company, again, think about your own companies, right? You gotta put, these are just some examples. These are just some examples, right? Again, there's a lot more that goes into this. But again, when you're planning a cybersecurity for your company, number one, you gotta know your risks. You gotta know, what are my risks, right? What am I trying to protect and what are my risks? That's the number one step, right? That's where it starts. Like the house, I don't know, what do we have in this house? What are we trying to protect, right? Why is this house important to us? Who lives in it, right? Same thing here. So again, protection, detection, response. And there is more that goes. This is just some examples for you that when you are doing it for your company, just don't think buying a good firewall and buying the most expensive antivirus or you know, any other security solution, especially when it comes to technology, right? Don't think buying the top of the line necessarily going to be your security plan. No, you got to put different things in place. You can layer it. The more layered, the more difficult to break in, right? So, sorry. That is really what I kind of want you guys to think about, right? So, if your investment is important for you, if your company is important for you, if you guys work hard, you know, on your company, right, you want to protect it, right? And this is really, I think, where nowadays things are going to differentiate, right? So there are a lot of IT companies out there. We are an IT company too, right? But again, the angle that you take, you know, to protect the company is different. You know, obviously productivity is important. Obviously, you know, making sure there's a smooth business operation is important. But if any company out there doesn't put cybersecurity in their top 2 or 3 priority when it comes to, you know, planning their IT or infrastructure, right, there is something wrong with them, right? So if you guys are interviewing, you know, a company to come help you with your IT or anything, right? No matter how big or small you are, because again, this is your life investment. You worked hard on this. You know, you built this business. You're working this business. If it goes out of business, what's going to happen, right? And it always takes this one person, you know, or one mistake, you know, to happen. It doesn't take a whole lot, right? So make sure that there's a plan in place. That's what I'm trying to get. Make sure there is a cybersecurity plan in place to protect your most precious asset that you work so hard on it, right? And that plan should have protection part, should have detection part, and response part. Should have people assigned to tasks, right? If it's a bigger company. If it's one company, you can outsource probably part of it, right? But you gotta know what you're exactly doing, right? Again, just like your house, if I'm gonna tell you, hey, I'm gonna go break into your house, in your head, you're gonna be thinking, you know what? I got a fence that's pretty tall, and I got great locks on the door, and I got a motion detection in place, and I got insurance. I'm gonna be fine. You go try it, you know? This is the thought, right? So same thing, if I'm gonna attack your business, what do you have in place? What kind of plan you have in place, right? With that, I'm gonna reiterate what I said in a couple previous slides. Wait. You want to assess what you have. You got to start with like, what I have and what is my risk. And that's pretty much all I wanted to tell you guys today. And that's the way to protect your business. So let's do the next slide. Now let's do a Q&A. I'm here to answer your questions, but as a thank you for you guys attending today, I want to offer everybody who attend today a free risk assessment of their business. So the QR is that 45 minutes or less, we're gonna have a high-level conversation where I'm not gonna wanna look into your systems or log in or anything. I wanna have a conversation with you, right? But through the course of that conversation, I'm gonna ask you some tough questions, right? And they're gonna be yes or no, so nothing like, you know, crazy, right? But I'm gonna give you an exact picture of what your risk is according to, you know, today's standards. So if you guys are interested, feel free to, you know, scan the QR code, you know, and then we can have a more in-depth conversation based on your company. But other than that, I'm here to answer your questions. Yes, sir.
I have a very specific question. So, I mean, Google will always tell me if one of my stored passwords and usernames is on the dark web, right?
Mm-hmm.
We use, Microsoft Domain Server Active Directory.
Mm-hmm.
Are there tools that will take my Active Directory usernames and passwords and go out and see if those are on the dark web, see if any of my people who have access are reusing passwords and usernames that are...
So that would become a very specific search, right? If you can export it somehow out of the, I guess you can, obviously, export out of Active Directory, that should be pretty straightforward. If you can export it, yes, you can run against a dark web search database and it will tell you if the passwords are out there, right? But I'm gonna go back to the question of, right, what are the layers you have? Let's say it is, worst case it is on the dark web. Let's say people know your employee's password, right? Again, hypothetically. What is in place to stop them from getting in, right? I'm gonna be like, because you asked a specific question, I'm gonna give specific suggestions, right? And this is probably applies to some of you guys as well, right? Let's say your password did get compromised. I know your password, right? Do you have multi-factor authentication in place? Doesn't matter for your online account or your own computers, right? Your desktop, your laptop, right? Do you have multi-factor authentication in place? In other case, if I even steal your password, kind of like your bank account when you log in, send you this code, right? Do you have something in place that even if I steal your password to your network, to your computer, to your online account, right? It stops me from getting in because I don't have that phone that sends me the code. You have it, right? The other thing, right? Okay, let's say I steal your laptop, and let's say I know your password, and somehow, again, this is gonna be very unlikely, but somehow I have access to your token. Maybe I stole your phone too, right? I stole your laptop. Can I get into it? You shouldn't be able to, because the laptops or the whatever desktops or whatever you guys use, they should be all encrypted. The hard drive should be physically encrypted. In other words, if someone steals it, like from your car, they shouldn't be able to get into it, or they should really spend a good amount of money to get to your data. Again, how bad do they want the data, right? Because if you use encryption on your storages, like hard drives and so whatnot, right? And you use a long enough key to encrypt it, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's going to be very, very, very difficult to get in. Again, it wouldn't be an average thief that would break in and do that, right? So back to your question, right? Do you have multi-factor authentication in place for all your accounts, whether internal Active Directory or outside, right? Do you have a policy that applies encryption, and do you have something against it that checks to make sure the encryption is being? Because guys, this is the other thing. Like you apply all these, right? You gotta have a way of reporting it, right? You gotta have a way of like having it, right? Or and this is probably simple, but I'm sure all of you guys might do it, right? Are the updates, the Windows update, let's say you're in Windows, right, or Mac, whichever, are the updates being applied on a regular basis, and you have a way of confirming it, right? Because if you leave it on each individual computer by default, right, I could push the update button or not, I could decide, right? Do you have a policy to enforce it across and gives a report that, hey, this was done, right? In other words, when you guys think about credentials getting stolen, don't just, again, think about, sure, it got stolen, what's next, right? Again, I want to break into your house and steal something. You're in your head, I got insurance, I got fence, I got camera, sure, So yes, you can export it, you can check it against dark web, but think about next controls in place, yeah.
This is my question is, it sounds like every breach I've heard about for a long, at first people were it seemed like hackers were trying to get to the servers, trying to get through all this. And now it seems like I rarely hear that. Maybe I'm just not knowing it. It seems like they're attacking through phishing operations right now.
Phishing is the number one, actually. It's the hottest, it's a trend. It's the coolest thing to do, I think.
Right, and I don't know if this is a good strategy. We've just been talking about, well, we should really, have copies of our whole system, because if we got attacked, we could, okay, so just as a scenario, let's just say we go through that for a second. What happens if I find out that my laptop's been breached, right? I get some notice saying, hey, you gotta pay us some money.
Okay.
Now, if I have my entire laptop backed up, right, I should be able to go in, restore that, recover that, change all my keys, passwords, tokens, everything for all my code that's running everywhere. The hacker could potentially get in, but if I had multi-factor authentication, so it's hitting my phone, that's gonna take some time, probably not even worth it, right?
Right.
Hackers.
If you already have that in place before the breach, they probably can't get into those accounts, yeah.
So the question is, they're gonna have to act sometime, right? 'Cause they're gonna wanna make money. So if someone gets on your system, they're gonna wanna make money.
Right.
Am I battling like a real person, or am I fighting against?
It really depends. There's a lot of, we call those script kiddies these days, which are literally, we call them kids. I mean, just one guy sitting there running stuff. Hopefully someone falls in trap, right? And there's also organized crime as well. It depends on how bad and how much bad. It depends on whether you're targeted or not. And remember, you don't always have to be targeted just because, let's say you're a company manufacturing you or no. It could be a competition hire someone for you. Trust me, if you go on, I shouldn't say these things, but dark web is a really bad place. Please don't try to go there. But TikTok, right? You guys seen the TikTok? I put some dark web hashtags there to kind of see what kind of stories people have, right? And dark web is a place, it's basically the impossible is possible. So I've saved a video I can share with you guys. There was this guy who went on dark web, ordered some drugs, like illegal drugs, right? They ordered it, and he said, and he paid with Bitcoin, and obviously there's no traces, nothing that way. And he said, I just thought the money's gone. He said a week later, a magazine showed up in my house. And they put it like inside the, what do you call it, the top portion of the magazine with all the papers. But they put drugs inside of it for him. They delivered like literally with mail. Here's your drugs with mail, right? So anything can happen, right? Dark web, right? Again, it just, sometimes if you're targeted, it's bad. Because if you're targeted, they do their best to get it. But also I want to tell you this, right? What are your liabilities? That's the other question. So the fact is someone got access. It's not someone just encrypted your data. Someone got access to your data. So the chances are they probably have a copy of some stuff by now, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, they got the IP. Okay, so
yeah, they got the IP.
If they're smart enough, right? They look at it and they go, oh, this shows us, how things work. I'm guessing they don't care. They just want to look.
Oh, it's just eBay.
They want to find passwords and.
Yeah, they find the passwords on the internet. You're correct, sir. The passwords are the most common. But again, even your IP, what takes me is think about eBay. Just publish a couple pages on eBay. Who's interested? What's the highest bid on this? Somebody's looking for something all the time, right? But in terms of, yes, that's your passwords. But also think about your emails, right? Because if they could, let's say they could get into your laptop or directly they could get into your emails, right? If somebody goes into there and deletes all your emails, right? That's one scenario. Also think about a bad employee, right? Somebody's leaving the company, they go in and delete all their emails right before they leave. Or you have an HR case which someone sends a nasty email to the other person and they go delete it from their mailbox. I never send it, right? There's so many different scenarios with emails, right? The question you ask yourself is, if your emails all get deleted today, can you recover it? Can you bring it back? Right? So when it comes to email in specific, because you mentioned email, here is what we suggest that we do, right? Email is typically a multi-step layer for security, right? So we implement email backup. Again, typically Office 365 or Google Suite, that's what people mostly use these days, right? We implement email backup. It basically backs up your mailbox every night. Simple, right? That's an easy one. If something happens, restore your inbox from the day before or 2 days before, whatever. So you lose a little bit, but you still have majority of the emails. Then think about email security gateways, right? Again, those antivirus, anti-phishing, all those stuff. It just checks your email before it hits your email server and kind of try to filter those things out, right? And then think about the next thing is email compliance. Sometimes you have, especially a bigger company, I want to look for this email that John Doe sends to Monique, right? I want to find this email. How soon can you guys find an email in your organization today? Right? Typically, if you have an email archive system implemented in place, and it doesn't matter if they delete the email or not, nobody cares anymore, right? Because every email before it hits your email server will get archived here. Every email, in and out, it gets archived. This is your email server, this is your archive, right? So basically, within seconds, and again, we do that, especially with accounting firms that we deal with, right? We do that all the time because they've got big turnover, people come, people go crazy, right? But every firm or every company we deal with, pretty much, they can search whatever email based on just a couple keywords or sender or receiver or whatever subject, right? They can find it in 3 seconds in their entire organization, no matter the employee is there or not, no matter the employee gone rogue or not. You can search the entire organization for the email. So email compliance. So we put those things in place, and then it hits your email server, and then we have, we particularly have a very cool technology that we're bringing. Technology, so many out there. But we have a technology which is basically an AI-based anti-phishing solution, which it would literally do what a human should do. It basically has a sandbox. It would open the email. I would analyze the website that it goes to or something goes to, and kind of based on AI and some sort of logic, try to give the score that what chance that this is a phishing one, like if it's very similar to your company name, or like, this website is a bad website, and then like that would block you, right? And then I'm gonna go back to the basics, right? Train your team, train your employee, train your people, right? Email, and that phishing training is huge, right? Give them a score, play quizzes on them, right? We do phishing tests, with all our clients. In other words, we send random phishing emails out, and other than bad stuff, which I'll tell you in a second. We send phishing emails out, and we'll see who clicked on it, and we give a report to the company owner, right? This employee is risky because they clicked 3 times on a phishing test in the past 6 months. This is a risky employee. What can we do? You need more training. Here's some more training for you, right? Because it's just like one employee to put you out of business. And the last thing in terms of test, again, test your employees, right? One of the things we do is, obviously we don't allow USB in our client's network at all, right? We just block USB because USB is poison, but there are other ways to get the data, obviously, safer ways. But what we do is, let's say we didn't, right? We would go and throw a flash drive in a parking lot or put it behind someone's windshield at night or in the morning, in the morning, right? And sometimes it knows, sometimes not, but you just throw a flash drive, right? Again, if you could get creative, you could put a note that, hey, I know what you've been doing, just put a sticker on the flash drive. The simple logic is, if you don't know this flash drive, please don't plug it in. But we put like a tracer program on it, right? The second they plug it in, we get notified, we know which computer this got plugged in, which location they got plugged in, right? It's a test. Again, don't plug in the flash drive you bring from the outside into your company computers. So
if someone does get a desktop compromised, like with some bad ransomware or whatever, does that automatically mean every machine in a company needs to be basically refreshed back to before?
Not always. You gotta do the analysis. You gotta see how widespread this will. It's really, if you have proper tools in place, again, detection or after fact, right? We can do an analysis and see where things go, right? For example, with the ransomware, we call the managed threat detection response, and it's a very broad term, right? But one of the things we do, we put honeypots, you put files in different places over the network, all over your network. Those files, tiny files, they shouldn't change because we're not touching. Nobody's supposed to be touching. Nobody knows where they are. Nobody should be touching them. But the second those files start to get encrypted, then we know how spread this situation is, right? So like I said, it's there's a lot of tools and technologies that comes into the place. But honestly, I would love to have a conversation with you guys beforehand than the afterhand. Like, please don't call me after. Hey, you got something.
Well, okay, so
Wait.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure, please. I wasn't judging.
No, so that was really good, by the way.
Thank you.
That presentation was really good. Number 2, I think we're all sufficiently terrified.
That was not the goal, but okay.
No. But let me ask you this, it's a little bit higher level, I guess. So you used the example of cutting your finger.
Yes.
You did the first reasonable thing, which was apply pressure, and then you said, I need to go to the emergency room, right? You didn't put a tourniquet on your arm because you had a little blood coming out. Do you know what I'm saying? So, meaning, you didn't say, I've got to cut off all the blood to this thing because...
It was just here, yeah.
Exactly, it was right here. So, in working with, you obviously work with a range of businesses, small and large, I'm assuming. It sounds to me like you apply a very reasonable response, or recommendation is probably better, based on everything you're asking us to do, which is what is the risk, what are we trying to protect? Is that fair to say?
Yes,
Okay.
So back to that computer example that got compromised, okay? Again, the idea is you should have there are 2 things. There are 2 plans that you have in place for any business, no matter small or big, right? First of all, incident response plan, which is stop the bleeding plan. That is the incident response plan. And then the other plan is disaster recovery plan, which is, emergency room or whatever, or rest at home, whatever it is, right? So 2 different plans, right? So you're talking about incident response, I think, in this one mostly, right? number one, you should have the plan beforehand, not after. And if it's happened, you can do stuff, but it's not as effective as you had the plan, because when you're doing the plan basically, let me put it this way, guys, everything starts with this risk assessment. It starts your risk assessment, incident response plan, disaster recovery plan, right? So let's assume you had that, right? But in a very specific answer to your question, right, here's how it could go, right? You immediately unplug that computer off of the network, and you immediately cut the outside connection to your network if you can afford it. Again, depends on situation. Sometimes you absolutely can't, but if the risk is high, you absolutely want to do it. It's better to have client complaining for a couple of hours rather than, and then you start analyzing your networking computers and servers and everything, right? Just kind of figure out, how bad the situation is. Again, this is after fact, right? So yes, you can do that. But again, I'd suggest put the incident response plan in place. First thing, just take that one computer out and then isolate from the outside. Don't isolate inside. I said isolate from the outside first to kind of, do the check.
And that's all based on the risk assessment, because as small businesses, we have people coming to us all the time saying, you need this, and it's your example of the $10,000 firewall.
Right.
Do I need a $10,000 firewall? But
You're
there will be businesses that will tell me no matter what I do.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing, right? You should ask them, anybody, even me, if I tell you that that's firewall, okay, what is your guarantee? Okay, I spent 10 grand, what am I getting?
Yeah.
And remember, when it comes to this is probably a sales conversation. When it comes to any sales, and Greg, Rick and I talk about this all the time, right? There are different facts. Sometimes you get a return on investment, right? You spend the money to get something back. Sometimes you get a competitive edge, right? And other times you're just mitigating a risk. In other words, if your roof is leaking and a roofer guy shows up, right? It's not really the conversation of like, this is so expensive. It's like, we gotta fix this right now. So is it reasonable? Do I like the guy? Do I not like the guy, right? Let's get it done, right? And that's security. Security is my roof is leaking, right? And remember, there's stealth, but I also want to say something. A lot of times, okay, one thing I pride ourselves on, right? And again, any company might say that, but this is a particular our company, right? We believe in modern way. We have a very modern approach to this, especially with small businesses, right? I give you an example. Let's say small businesses, they run some stuff off of their browser. It's online, right? They have some files they share internally between their network, and they use QuickBooks, for example. QuickBooks Desktop is a perfect example, right? Or they use other applications, which is Windows-based, right? Okay. You're a small business. I mean, I don't know how many employees you have, but let's say I'm going to put you with 5 employees. Okay, fair size, small, right? Tiny, micro, I guess. So the old-fashioned way, here's the old-fashioned way. And I'm going to compare, right? Because I'm very proud of what we do, but I hope it's okay to brag about it. Old-fashioned is you go buy 5 computers, you buy a server, you set up a network, you set up a firewall, and you keep paying for maintaining your computers, and you keep paying for maintaining that server, and you back it up, and you buy antivirus, and you pay for support, and you pay $150 to a guy who shows up to fix this stuff once in a while. This is the old-fashioned way. How we do it in this particular scenario, again, not every scenario, but it's a very common scenario, right? We would set up for you one machine, just one machine, a cloud. And we put all your softwares on here. So it makes it really easy to control, because now I got only one place I need to worry about securing. I don't have 10 different things to go around, right? So your cost is lower, right? You can access this machine from anywhere, from your Windows, your Mac. You know the QuickBooks, and if you guys use QuickBooks Desktop, you've probably heard this, right? It's pain. The Mac version sucks, right? They only need a Windows machine to run, right? But that's always a pain. But if like you want to look at your financials from your iPad or your Android or your phone and all that, right? Basically, the way we set it up, it doesn't matter what you're on, as long as you have a browser, Chrome or Firefox, you have access to your entire office inside the browser. Whether it's your QuickBooks, your ERP software, your CRM software, your cloud-based software, you do it through a computer, right? Again, yes, we're probably losing money. There's probably a huge margin for us to go like do a service with 5 or 6 different computers and servers and charge per hour, right? Versus we're kind of unorthodox. We're like, you need one server and secure just that one server, and you can access it from anywhere. You don't care about what computers you have anymore. You can go literally to like Best Buy or Walmart or eBay and get something cheap, right? $200, buy something on eBay. You just need a browser. So I hope that answered.
It does, and I mean, you're in the trust business because
It's all trust.
not only about cybersecurity, but most of what you say for the layperson, they have no clue what you're talking about. I'm sad to say I kind of understand what you're saying because that puts me in a very strange world. That's where I live. And so it is all about trusting that analysis that you do and saying, you have as a great business, which it seems like you have a great business, you want to protect and help another great business.
Exactly. And by the way, speak of assessment, right? That's I think so. The assessment that we do works. Sorry, Rick, I know you have a question. Beth, you have a question too. You did raise one. No, okay, so it's just you. Okay, but here's the thing: the assessment that we do is based on a NIST framework. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Okay, so it's a very common framework known across the U.S. and worldwide. To be honest, it's the same framework worldwide. They just put their own different names on it. In the U.S., it's a NIST standard that we use, right? So the question that we ask you, the assessment is based on that. It's not some sort of fishy question as you came up with. No, I'll send you a link. Actually, it's in every assessment we do it right at the beginning. Here is the framework we use to do your assessment, and we put in table, kind of just like protect and detect and respond. Here's what you got to protect, what you respond, right? And when we do the assessment, honestly, we give you the answers on the spot as a part of the assessment. In other words, you don't have to hire us to do it. You know what to do. It tells you, okay, you're missing this, go get this. We don't make recommendation what brand or what software or what tools, right? But let's say you need multi-factor authentication on your computers. Well, go get that, So that's the other reason it's easier to establish trust because the framework isn't just made up. It's the NIST framework everybody uses in the US, so it's a very common one. Yes, sir.
So we did the $3 a day firewall. So it wasn't quite 10,000, but we would eventually get to 10,000 if we use it for that amount.
If you scale up.
Yeah, so I worked with Hossein and worked with multiple projects already. And one of the things was like you need a WAF, which is essentially kind of this firewall that sits in front of our app. And it protects us from like DDoS, it protects us from people trying to do like weird endpoints, it protects us from like all these different little scenarios. We're a software company, so there's we have this cloud infrastructure. Like all of our employees are remote, all of our applications are remote, all of our clients are remote. So like security is kind of like we have to do something.
We do.
So
It's almost impossible today to sell software without bringing security in conversation because you're like, I'm giving you my data. Oh, I should tell you guys this. So I'm sure you guys heard about QuickBooks or use QuickBooks, right? Let's now talk about QuickBooks Online, which is probably more common in small business world, right? This is just an example, applies to many other software. One of the questions we ask in that risk assessment is, have you identified your third party's risk factor? Because remember, now you put all this financial data on QuickBooks Online, as an example, right? What happens if the QuickBooks is compromised, right? And you think Intuit is a giant company. They're gonna write me a hefty check because they got compromised. Or they got probably $10 million policies on it, right? Here is the thing, and that is what you've agreed. And you remember those little fine prints, terms and agreements you check? Yes, I read and agreed to this. Read that next time. Go look up for the Intuit one. Here's what Intuit does. If their QuickBooks Online gets compromised, they are going to pay you 12 months of service, up to 12 months of service. So let's say you're paying, I don't know, $100 a month to Intuit. They're gonna write you a check. Worst case, if they agree that it was their fault, right? They might not. They might not even tell you they got compromised, to be honest. They're gonna write you a check to say, here, $1,200 for $3.8 million damage that we have done to you.
Yeah. And are they doing? Okay, so do they do anything? Because you can't back up your QuickBooks Online data.
Yes. Yeah, but again, that data is out there.
So you're hoping they're doing it.
Yes.
You can download the you can export and download it.
You can
It's
do
an
it.
idea to do periodically.
Okay.
You can have a copy of it.
Okay, yeah, okay, but there's a lot of cloud software where it's too complicated
To do it,
back
yeah.
up. And if you backed it up, it would make little sense once you backed it up. Like the data would be.
And you're hooked with them. Like you can't not we have a client that's in manufacturing, right? And they deal with aircraft industry. They literally deal with Delta, Southwest, all those big guys, and they got like a bunch of offices across the world. Okay, these guys, they use an ERP software, which is for their, it's a cloud-based software, right? Here's the thing: it's impossible to move off of that. They're hooked. Do you really want to change the way you run business for the past, 10 years and train a bunch of people again or not? So it's not just always the fact that they somehow compromise. It's like you're on the hook with some of those cloud softwares. Almost like your iCloud account if you have an iPhone, right? Or your Dual account. You're on the hook somehow, But back to you, you can back it up obviously yourself. A lot of those financial software let you back up the data. But again, the other question is, who has my data now? Again, there's liability. Even if you don't really think your risk is high, if situations like those happen, you're entitled to your rights, which basically. Oh, and by the way, when you hire an IT guy, here's the other part. It doesn't matter what an IT guy tells you, right? IT guys, in the eyes of law, are what refer to asset custodians and asset data. You are the asset owner of the company, right? Again, I use the example of the accounting firm, but apply to your situation. The accountant, the CPA firm owner, is the asset owner. His clients trusted him with the data, and then he gave it to the IT guy to put it, whatever, or back it up or whatever, right? So now he's asset custodian. If there's a data breach, only the asset owner gets called to the court, and asset owner cannot transfer the liability to the asset custodian. So next time your IT guy tells you that, I'm gonna come with you to the court if something happens, call the BS. They can't legally go to the court. I mean, unless they want to show up themselves, but you can't take them to the court because you are the one who hired them,
Well, also, like I have a bookkeeper that has access to my QuickBooks. What is her risk, right? Because she's.
Same thing, you should ask the same question. Hey, what happens if you get breached? Ask that question. What happens if you get breached? What controls do you have in place? What do you have, right? You should be able to ask all those questions. Again, Rick sells software. He gets those questions all the time. And, his software, is not like Microsoft or anything, but he still gets the question, right?
So you sleep well at night, right?
I sleep well when no one calls me, but unfortunately, my relationship with my clients is a way that they know they can call me anytime. So if nobody calls me, yes, I sleep well at night. Or if somebody calls me, I'm happy to help. In other words, let me put it this way, I help you sleep better at night. If I was going to summarize my company, it's like we help you sleep better.
That's not your tagline on your website.
I know.
You need to change it, man.
Help you sleep at night.
No, you know what our tagline was? Secure your insecurities.
Well,
People thought they're a weight loss company, but anyways, that was a different story.
I guess her question that makes me think of, okay, so now we got these vendors that work for us. I mean, I can't put them on this cloud system. I mean, now we got to pay for them, to another access point. So, you can't work on your laptop anymore. You have to go to the browser and access our server.
It depends on what it is. I mean, you got to be a little bit more specific.
Well, we scheduled
like an account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. I'm happy to take a, but it depends, right? I mean, let's say bookkeeping. I don't know. Let's say you use QuickBooks Desktop, right? Doesn't matter whether your accountant knew you. With the way we suggest doing it, put in a centralized place. The accountants access, you access both, right? And you also know what kind of control is in place. But when it comes to bigger vendors, like the third-party big softwares you might purchase online or something, right? Look at their terms and agreement. It gotta be in there. It gotta be in there, So just remember, you can't call them to the court because your client, I mean, yes, you can sue them direct if something happened, right? But you can't call them because your client sued you. You know what I mean? Does it make sense? If your client sues you, it's you. You can't transfer the responsibility. But if they're being dishonest or something to you, obviously you can't take them to the court. Sorry, I talked too much.
Do you have any updates on insurances?
Oh, cyber liability insurance. I think we're over time, but I'll just say this. I'm around. We can chat after. Cyber liability insurance. So think about your car insurance. You get a car insurance. Cyber liability insurance is not like your car insurance. So don't confuse that with the other type of insurance, because the cyber liability insurance, it's a very evolving insurance, right? First of all, today compared to 6 months ago, it's harder to get. it's just like that. As you get forward in time, it's harder to get cyber liability, especially one higher limit. If you want like low limit, like 250K or something, it's probably easier. But you want $1 million, now you gotta go through this questionnaire and assessment. So sometimes when you apply those security plans and controls and all that in place, you actually make it easier to get cyber liability insurance, for sure. But the other part is, remember, if you have one claim on that, chances are 90% nobody else in this country is going to insure you. If you have one data breach and then you make a claim on your cyber liability insurance because you needed the money to pay the client damages, whatever, pay the ransom, and they pay for ransom and all that too, right? They would no longer, nobody else would cover you or renew your insurance, you know. I don't want to say names, but I hear, so that's an insurance here in Utah, the barrier. I hear the same sort of barrier, except when it comes to home, right? Like if you have a claim on your home, they're gonna dump you like next month. I heard that. I don't know. I don't want to be.
They'll raise your rate.
You ought to raise your rate, right?
Super high, just for calling.
Right, but if car insurance, you get an accident, probably the first time the rate doesn't go up. Next time it goes up a little bit. You know, it's not the end of the world. You pay $50 more a month or whatever, right? But the other part is, so that's the first time claim, right? Second time claim, I guarantee you, 100%, nobody in this entire country is going to insure you if you have a second claim or cyber liability insurance. So think about it as a one-time use insurance. Think about your very last resort. Put everything in place so it doesn't get there, you know, because then you have something to kind of rely on. Where if I get sued, 500K, sure, I'll use my policy, whatever, you know. So, anyways. I'm around, but I really appreciate you guys coming. You know, thank you so much.
I help you sleep at night. I help you sleep at night. I'll keep my eyes open when your eyes are closed.
Yeah, that sounded like my creating.
I know, that's true.
Where were you sleeping up there?
I'll watch you while
I will watch you.
I'm trying to call, he has something that's so much more.
Mike, that you might see
that whole thing.
But I would work with one at least. You know, in the past.
Yeah, no problem.
Health insurance.
No, you know,
Car insurance.
this is great for, you know, he's going to be cooked up in around 40 minimizing factors to get that whole thing done. And it's not like, go do this. So there's only one, it's like, we're all part, no, we're just gonna, but most of us were, they're not doing it. None of them were actually close. And so I don't have that kind of
Here's your first
control stuff, and I'm thinking,
You have to do it.
especially laptops, encrypting them, we should totally do it. Because
Like,
when they get stolen, they generally don't want the data. And so, you know, think harder about trying to access the data.
Yeah, the laptop itself is.
If it's virus,
I just wanna make it so much harder to get to our stuff. And then recovery. I wanna cover that.
Yeah, setting you up to set up our data recovery control, so we can recover up to an hour. So every hour.
So if you've been encrypted,
Yeah, and then we're gonna go back.
you know what they do, all the files are
Apply
encrypted.
the encryption, anti-classification, do all that
They give
control.
you a little message.
Right. And not worry about the AEDs.
So how do you get into that
That's the
business?
first question I need.
Well, that's it.
Move on, please.
I could literally write that.
That don't require large.
Microsoft server, you've written one.
So can we not?
Where can I get drugs for $100? Yeah. Today was
Okay, they use, like, we do. In that case, we could kind of limit.
We back up to AWS.
Okay.
To their.
Then,
So I get back
comes
up
from
there,
there, so we make it sound
as well. That's why like,
Never
you know,
shows anything.
that server rack turns down.
Okay, yeah, that's what you three,
If I can
They just go away on taking on that line.
And it takes all of our servers.
Because,
back. So I feel good about that.
But,
The thing that I need to work on is.
I mean, my databases are, you
We
can't,
should encrypt their drives.
they're all
And
like.
I'll just tell them, force these.
As long as, yeah.
Because they're all partners, they're all like.
Yeah,
At this point,
Multi-factor, that she's on
different.
multi-factor.
But with partners, it's easy.
As long as
Yeah, you guys are a little more exposed, so I'm thinking about bringing them.
Yeah,
Right, good.
exactly.
I said only
Five guys
US.
that I've got
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
It's easier. Yeah,
You can't get to outside the US.
and the two-factor.
So that's one step, right? Next step, I'm gonna say,
So guessing
all right,
our
here's
system support.
six different machines. There's 6 different machines that you can even.
Yeah, we got five guys.
Yeah,
Jump cloud is.
the problem that is happening now though is that
That's the word.
the
I see.
cloud servers have these giant ranges, like addresses. But I can, hackers even throw
I mean, you want to
Yeah,
do that,
yeah, one of those. and that's one that I lost, right?
So that's just a, like a remote.
So how am I gonna stop, you know, that guy from doing that? So, but they have to set something up in the US, do it on official, like, Azure cloud or AWS cloud, right? They have to do it there.
Yeah, the other thing that we set up is we actually encrypt everything.
Yeah,
We encrypt that rest.
that's fun, huh?
We encrypt that rest and then we have key rotation that happens every 24 hours. So it's automated, so we don't have to
Your
do it.
tokens, you mean?
So, no, so key rotation for our encryption.
Oh.
So all of our clients' data is encrypted and then we have this kind of
Oh,
rotated key.
this data that you're storing.
Yeah, so, because we store a lot of data.
Yes, yeah, I don't,
Oh,
I store.
Yeah.
I only store a few
Lucky.
labs. I have a small table, that table is like locked away, so
Yeah.
no one can really access it.
Yeah, we store a ton of data, so, and it's our customers' data, so.
Yeah, that would start making me nervous. I think we pay for that.
They do.
I think, let's say, this is serious. Let me show you what I'm doing. Just so you know. Because that's expensive.
Yeah, it is.
It takes,
Yeah.
you know, a long time. Like all my tokens and stuff, they all sit in a config file and they're all encrypted. So if you got the token, you can't do anything with it. If you somehow compromise the system, oh, look, I see the auth tokens. They're not. So you'd have to, you grab it, you could use it, and you'd be like, it doesn't work. So I do that kind of layer. But once someone gets on your system, dude,
Yeah.
they get on their laptop, start figuring things out.
Yeah.
There's no,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
there's no,